Hey, good afternoon to you. 407 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Caroline Sunshine is a spokeswoman for the Trump campaign. She'll join us this hour, 4:30. We talk to her about what to expect this evening in Atlanta. And then Dan Schneider is here at 5:30. He's with Free Speech America and the Media Research Center as the big tech companies try and put their finger yet again on the scale of the American election. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Busy week, a lot of Supreme Court opinions coming out, rulings coming out, and a big one today that is angering so many big government adherents because it's stripping power away from the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. For more on this, I want to bring in an attorney who represented the plaintiff in the case. Michael McColloch is here, his client, George Jarksey, and they won a big case today, SEC versus Jarkesy. Michael, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be with you.
Give us, if you could, just give us kind of the Cliff's Notes on the case and what was actually achieved today.
Well, what the court did today was rule that the agencies, in this case the SEC, who have been for a long time running an in-house court system outside of the federal courts with very little, if any, due process and with no juries, they can't do that anymore. This is going to have a serious impact on most of the three-letter agencies. We're talking SEC, FCC, FTC. Much of their enforcement power over ordinary citizens derives from their ability until today to adjudicate their claims against people, enforcement claims, in their own in-house forums, bypassing the court system. Mm-hmm. What many people don't realize is that up to 90% of the justice in this country is meted out by what I call fake courts. They're called administrative courts, where the accused citizen never gets to see the inside of a courtroom. And the so-called judges, called administrative law judges, ALJs, they work for the agency. So it's not surprising that the agencies win their cases against people nearly 100% of the time, which is what happened to George Jarksey when he's charged with the SEC back in 2013. It's been going on that long. The SEC was on a long 100% win streak in their own in-house courts, but they were just winning about a little over half the time in real federal courts. Mm-hmm. So we challenged the whole process starting back in 2013 and filed a lawsuit against the SEC to stop it, stressing especially the long-forgotten Seventh Amendment, which guarantees the right to trial by jury in civil cases, in common law cases. And that was the basis for the court's decision this morning.
In other words, the federal government is no longer allowed to, if this ruling is respected broadly by the federal government, they're no longer allowed to just conduct star chambers inside of these agencies and come up with arbitrary decisions about whether or not you're subject to punitive action. You actually, as an American citizen, are entitled to a jury. You're entitled to the normal protections that any criminal or civil proceeding is supposed to have.
That's a very good summary of what happened this morning. The reason these agencies have gotten so much power, this is a big reason, and this is why this case today upends it so much, is that they use this 100% win rate in their own in-house courts to extract settlements. So 98, 99% of cases filed by the SEC, the FTC, and all the other agencies, they settle. People have to settle, including lots of innocent people, because they know that they're certain to lose in the agency's own in-house courts. Now the agencies, as of this case this morning, are going to have to charge only those folks against whom they've got a really strong case, since they're going to have to appear in a real federal court before a real federal judge and convince a jury that they're right.
Now,
so it is a star chamber. You use that phrase. Even the Court of Star Chamber back in the 1600s, occasionally, it's a little known fact, occasionally used juries to adjudicate cases where the government's bringing a claim. In that case, the Crown would be bringing a claim against the citizen for some penalty. Occasionally, even the Star Chamber used juries. So these administrative proceedings in these agencies don't even rise to the level of the Court of Star Chamber.
Even a Star Chamber was more fair than what we were doing. Okay, so how far-reaching is this? I mean, you seem to think it is far-reaching. You know, we often, when we assess Supreme Court decisions, are they narrowly tailored just for this particular agency, the SEC, or will this have a broad impact on the federal government, and how quickly will it all change?
Well, it's going to have to change pretty quickly. There's no question that all the agencies and their general counsel offices are huddling all day today trying to figure out what to do next and how to revamp their procedures. The SEC, I guess to its credit, several years ago they saw the handwriting on the wall from this and another case and stopped pushing their fraud cases to these administrative courts and started filing them in real courts. And so it's not going to have a major impact on the SEC going forward, other than the fact that they're not going to be able to revert to the way they were doing things up until a few years ago. In the other agencies, the court's decision today did not restrict their holdings and the principles they announced just to the SEC. That was the case before them, but they said that any, particularly here, a fraud case, which was the kind of case that was brought back during the founding of the Republic and was brought in the courts of England for centuries before that, before real common law courts with juries, that fraud cases or anything that's akin to a fraud case for penalties against a citizen entitles that citizen to a real court and the right to trial by jury.
Yes.
And so there's nothing in the opinion that would limit this just to the SEC, and so it's going to have an impact. I think a significant one across the government.
Will this have, in your view, and we just have to speculate today, but in your view, will this have the effect of reducing the number of cases the government tries to bring against citizens? And because if you have to go to a jury trial, it seems like the logistics for that, the personnel for that, the budget for that is going to require more, and thus there may be less of an appetite to use it.
There will be, and I'm positive that this will reduce the number of cases that are brought. There's a lot of marginal cases brought, including the case against George Jarksey, which I could just tell you, I'm a trial lawyer. Finished a jury trial a couple weeks ago in federal court. George would have been exonerated by a jury, but he never had a chance in the agency court. I mean, it was a preordained conclusion. So, these cases are due process nightmares. There's little to no discovery. People are given very little time to prepare for trial. They dump this multiple terabytes of data on you with maybe a month or two before the so-called trial.
Yeah.
In fact, it was so much that in one of the opinions, either the concurrence or the majority opinion this morning, they said it would have taken, based on page equivalents of terabytes, that it would have taken like several hundred years with several lawyers spending 12 hours a day going through all the documents. I mean, so it couldn't be done. They rush you to trial after they've spent several years investigating it and taking testimony. Then you don't get discovery other than the big data dump. We didn't get any depositions, and then the rules of evidence don't apply that do apply in federal court. Well, I say they don't apply. They don't apply except when they do. When the SEC in our trial back in New York in 2014 was underway, the SEC introduced tons of documents that were clearly inadmissible under the rules of evidence, basically violated the hearsay rule. We objected. The ALJ, the SEC's own in-house judge, overruled our objection, let all that evidence in. And then when we tried to do exactly the same thing when we were putting on the defense, the judge announced, nope, it violates the hearsay rule. You can't get those things into evidence. So it's in many respects, these trials are a joke. And back to your question, the agencies do have to spend a lot more time preparing a case for federal court.
Yes.
And it's more complicated. They've got to subject themselves to the discovery process. They don't like that. And they're more time consuming generally,
right,
for them. Now, this case, Georgia's case, took a decade to wind its way through the Byzantine process to get to the point where we could go appeal this to first the Fifth Circuit and then the Supreme Court. One of the main justifications back when the administrative agencies were in their heyday, created back in the 30s and 40s, the main justification for these in-house courts was that we need, specialist tribunals who can adjudicate these cases very efficiently and quickly, because there's a lot of them, and we don't need to burden the federal courts with these things. Well, when a basic garden variety securities fraud case like this, which would have been tried in federal court in about a year, and the appeal would have been over a year or two later, back in probably by 2016, the whole thing would have been over. When the administrative process takes a decade, there's something seriously wrong with it, and there is. And we don't, in most cases now that they bring in these administrative courts, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. They're going to have to pick and choose their cases much more carefully, only bring the ones that are meritorious.
Yeah.
Again, they only win, 60-70% of the time, and that's fine. That's kind of the way it ought to be, but they shouldn't be allowed to do a shortcut around the U.S. Constitution, around the Article 3, which is the power of the judiciary, around the Seventh Amendment, the right to trial by jury, and around the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. They shouldn't be able to do an end run at their own whim, which is the way the system has been set up.
Yep.
That's what the court did away with today, 6-3.
It's so great. Finally, Michael McColloch, this is a great day because it restores power to the people, and that's always a big win.
It restores the balance of power, the separation of powers and the balance of power that our founders went to a lot of trouble back in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention to set this up. It's a very intricate process they set up, and that has been way out of whack for a long time. The court restored that today, at least with regard to these in-house proceedings.
Pretty fantastic. All right, Michael McColloch, thank you very much. Good work. Debate this evening. You can hear it live right here on WMAL, the CNN debate, 9 p.m. on this network. Let's see here. I've got Nick in Purcellville calling in right now, line 6. Nick, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, how are you?
Good, Nick.
Well, sir, if Trump has asked that question about the 29 economists who will explain that Trump's economy will cause inflation, well, my answer to that question would be that if these economists have been advising the Biden administration all these years, the 4 Bidenomical disastrous years we've had, then what good is their advice now?
Yeah, why should we trust you, given what you've done to us? It's a good question. Yeah, there are a number of stories that are kind of like this, Nick, in the last week, because there's a real sprint right now to try and spin the state of Biden's economy, which is in a shambles. And they're trying to explain all of this away. And they're saying, actually, if Trump gets reelected, it'll be so much worse, including Axios has this big letter up from a number of Nobel economists. That's how they describe them. 16 Nobel economists sign a letter about risks to the U.S. economy of a second Trump presidency. And they cite all sorts of left-wing economists to claim that Trump's going to be bad for us. Here's the reality. No president in American history has driven up the debt more than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is on track for a $9 trillion debt increase. I said that. $9 trillion. One of the first things Joe Biden did when he got into office is cut checks all across the country that we didn't need. And actually, he sent a lot of money to states that they didn't need, and some of which was to make up for the left's own, overspending that federal taxpayers ended up on the hook for. And as a result, inflation skyrocketed. It got so much worse because of Biden. And so this idea that Trump's going to be horrible for inflation is a scam. One other piece here, Nick, just because you got me on a roll now. The inflation thing, I've noticed that some of the economic assessments this week say only assess part of Trump's economic plan, because Trump has said he wants to raise tariffs on imports. He wants to raise tariffs. That's going to increase costs of goods. In other words, inflation. The cost of everything's going to go up because of Trump. Well, no, not everything. The stuff that's made in America doesn't go up. The stuff that's made elsewhere, yeah, sure, it will. But what they don't include in their assessment on purpose is that Trump has also offered at the same time a 0% federal income tax. They don't even include that in their economic assessment about what your costs will be, because if they did, it would redound to your benefit, which is why they don't tell you about
it. And Vince, when they bring up, because they always did, the Democrats bring it up every election, that the Republicans want to cut Social Security. Well, everybody needs to know that the money that we owe to, we think it's all owed to China, a lot of it's owed to our Social Security trust fund. So Social Security is not going away. We're paying it off in our debt.
Right. Yeah, because that's been the trust fund's been raided in order to pay for all sorts of things that aren't Social Security.
Absolutely, and so that's going to get paid. So that's just another scare tactic that they use every election. Yeah. So I'm sure we may get that again.
Oh no, that's all they have. They don't have a positive story to tell, Nick. Thank you. It's only scare tactics for you. Coming up. More on that debate. Yes, we'll get to more of your calls ahead in the program. Caroline Sunshine is here from the Trump campaign. I always loved her name. I do love her name. Caroline Sunshine. She'll be joining us in a minute. We'll get a preview from her of what's going on with President Trump. Also, here's a question. Who's in attendance with President Trump tonight? We've been told that the running mate will be there. That guest list, I'm going to ask about it coming up as we speak to the Trump campaign and you just moments away. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Dan Schneider from Free Speech America and the Media Research Center is here at 5:30. We'll talk to him about Big Tech's latest interference in our election. You need to know about that. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Will Joe Biden be on performance-enhancing drugs this evening?
What is the response to former President Trump's claims that President Biden may be taking something tonight to boost his performance?
I don't think that I should dignify that with an answer.
They're not denying it. For more on this, let's go to Caroline Sunshine now with an all-time great name. She's a Trump campaign deputy communications director and joins us on the phone. Caroline, great to have you back with us.
How are you?
I'm doing so well, and I mean it about your name. The Biden campaign must have like Hannah Hailstorm working for them or something. I love that you are Sunshine, so that's the best.
Well, thank you very much.
Hey, let's talk about what I just played. Karine Jean-Pierre says she doesn't want to dignify questions about whether or not they're juicing up Biden with an answer. But what do you think? Should she answer that question?
Well, let me tell you, that's PR speak for I don't want to answer the question. I don't remember the last question that Karine Jean-Pierre actually answered. The last I remember hearing from her, she was ranting to the American public about how they shouldn't believe their own lying eyes because all of these videos of Joe Biden falling downstairs and falling off his bike and wandering around the G7 and having to be babysat on stage, all of that was just cheap fakes. They were cheap fakes that were altered by AI. Every time Karine Jean-Pierre steps up to the podium or answers a question, I'm really reminded why the Biden White House would really prefer she doesn't. But speaking of people who are bad at their jobs, Joe Biden's going to be on that debate stage this evening with President Trump. President Trump is looking forward to debating because he has a great record, and President Trump's looking forward tonight to being there to fight on behalf of the American people and to give them answers to the questions that are troubling them. And there's a lot to work with. President Trump's going to be on that stage tonight fighting for Rachel Morin and her 5 children who she left behind. She's going to be up there fighting for Laken Riley, for Jocelyn Nungare, for the gentleman our campaign met in Pennsylvania this past weekend who said, "Sir, I'm voting for you because I had to come out of retirement because I can't afford my bills and I can't afford my medication." That's who President Trump is up there fighting for tonight. We're looking forward to a debate and seeing if Joe Biden can not only stand for 90 minutes, but can he also stand by his record for 90 minutes is the real test for Joe Biden, drugs or no drugs.
You know, Caroline, I'm glad you brought up Jocelyn Nungaray in particular. Her funeral is going on as we speak right now. That's the 12-year-old girl who was just brutalized, raped, and murdered in Texas by what the authorities say were 2 illegal immigrants, now in custody. But the Biden administration took them into custody, released them into the public, and as a result, this horror has been inflicted on that family and on that girl. I did wonder, will her name come up tonight? If the moderators don't bring it up, if Joe Biden himself doesn't bring it up, which I doubt he will, should we expect President Trump to bring it up?
Well, I won't get ahead of President Trump, because he speaks his mind and speaks his heart. But I will say, if there's one person on that stage who has said the names of not only Jocelyn Nungaray, but also Laken Riley and Rachel Morin, it's President Trump. Not only has he said their names, he has mourned with their families. President Trump, there were a lot of questions this week about how are the candidates preparing for the debate stage. And, Joe Biden was cloistered away, retreating at Camp David, which is really a metaphor not only for his debate preparation, but also for his presidency. He just retreats from the realities that he creates for the American people that they don't get to retreat from. I mean, Rachel Morin didn't get to retreat. Laken Riley didn't get to retreat. Jocelyn Nungaray's mother doesn't get to retreat today from her daughter's funeral. President Trump spoke with Rachel Morin's mother this past week, and I was genuinely touched to hear that her mother, Patty Morin, said, "You know what? President Trump's words brought me compassion." And it goes beyond saying their names. I know President Trump to be a man of deep compassion. I also know him to be a man of action. What the American people want and what these families want who are grieving the loss of their innocent loved ones because of Joe Biden's open border policies is they want an end to the carnage. And President Trump has pledged that on day one, he is going to launch the largest criminal deportation in our country's history. He's going to work with our terrific men and women of law enforcement to do it, because one of these victims is one too many. And we have to stop the carnage that's happening to our women and our children because of the violent criminals Joe Biden has allowed into our country. Not only has he allowed them in, he clearly wants them to stay. He just signed 2 amnesties in the last month.
Caroline Sunshine, what do you expect out of CNN's handling of this debate this evening? Obviously, President Trump has indicated that he took this debate because he wanted the opportunity to go against Joe, and in his view, he was calling their bluff that he wouldn't accept the debate under these circumstances. He's headed to Atlanta right now, and one thing we've seen, for instance, on CNN's website, just by way of example, since the debate was announced, they have fact-checked, in their words, President Trump 11 times. They have done 0 fact checks of Joe Biden since that same time. What do you expect from CNN tonight?
Well, if the bar is low for Joe Biden, it's even lower for CNN. President Trump said he would debate anytime, any place, anywhere, and unfortunately that means he's got to show up to fake news CNN. Look, actually it's CNN who's the real winner tonight, because the only time they get ratings is when President Trump is on their network. I don't even know who watches CNN anymore because nobody trusts them. They have not been the most trusted name in news for a while now, and these moderators that we have tonight, I don't even know if I can call them moderators because they're not moderate and they're not going to do a lot of moderating. I don't think anybody expects Jake Tapper, with his history of anti-Trump rhetoric and comparing President Trump to Adolf Hitler, to ask fair questions. I don't know if I've ever seen Jake Tapper ask a fair question in his entire journalistic career, if you can call it that. I certainly don't expect Dana Bash, with her husband, who was one of the 51 U.S. intelligence officials who told the American people, no, that laptop from hell, it's Russian disinformation, it's not real, who basically engaged in blatant election interference. I don't expect Dana Bash, that same Dana Bash, to ask fair questions about pressing Joe Biden on the facts that he was part of the lying apparatus that colluded together to lie to the American people that this laptop from hell was Russian disinformation, which we now know isn't true. In fact, it was entered in the big guy's son, Hunter Biden's trial, and I doubt CNN is going to make Joe Biden answer for that. But here is the silver lining for the American people. This type of environment that is so biased is exactly where President Trump is at his best. Because when he's in a hostile, biased environment like this, which really, let's be honest, he has been his entire candidacy and presidency ever since he came down the escalator in 2015, this is where he really shines on behalf of the American people. The American people are so fed up with being lied to by the mainstream media about everything from Hunter Biden's laptop to the origins of COVID-19, taking President Trump's words like bloodbath out of context. The American media has no trust and credibility with the American people. In fact, it's actually President Trump that the American people trust. And I know that they are looking forward to having somebody on that debate stage tonight represent their interests, give it right back, punch back. President Trump is a fighter. He's going to fight for the American people and for the truth on their behalf tonight.
Yeah, in fact, actually, as you say that, I think President Trump has the highest approval ratings of anyone in that room. The media has very low approval in America. Joe Biden, abysmal approval. President Trump, it turns out, has the highest approval of the group.
That's right, because he actually, well, one, because President Trump tells the truth, and two, because he's trusted on the issues that are most important to the American people. This election is about inflation, it's about the economy, it's about immigration. These are the issues that voters trust President Trump the most on. For example, we saw a poll last week saying 62% of Americans and a majority of Hispanics, I might add, want mass amnesty or want mass deportations instead of mass amnesties for illegal immigrants. The mainstream media would tell you it's the exact opposite.
Right.
But these are the same people that tell you the sky isn't blue. But I'm just saying, right? The mainstream media would have you believe that, oh no, the American people somehow want millions more illegal immigrants, blah blah blah. No, that's not true. So that's why President Trump is, rightfully trusted, thank goodness, by the American people.
Yeah. Let me, I know a lot of people are wondering, definitely within our audience, what kind of President Trump is going to appear tonight? Like what his strategy ultimately is going to be. I know you said earlier in the conversation you don't want to get ahead of him here. I did see he talked to Byron York recently, and I just quoted an interview of his. And he indicated that he thought maybe he interrupted Joe Biden a little too much in their first debate a couple years back. In their second debate, he felt like he was at a better pace. Can you give us any sense of sort of his spirit going into this tonight, and if he has any sort of strategy specifically in mind?
Yeah, so President Trump has been hydrating today with a steady diet of liberal tears. He is ready to go. Look, President Trump, one of the many things I love about him is he engages so directly with the American people. So if you remember just this past week in front of a crowd in Philadelphia, he actually asked the American people directly, what do you think? You think I should be aggressive? You think I should be nice? So I won't get ahead of President Trump because he is his own man, and he's going to feel the room, and he's going to do what is best on behalf of the American people. He's going to speak the truth when he has to speak it, which I imagine is going to be quite often on that stage. But President Trump is going to speak the truth about his record, and that's the other point I would bring up that is really the crux of this debate and what it all hinges on, which is that this election and this debate are the first time in a century that the American people can compare two former sitting U.S. presidents and their records back to back. Those records speak for themselves, right? Under President Trump, we had the most secure border in U.S. history. We had an economy where the American dream was alive and well. Inflation was at 1.9%. Gas was $1.69 a gallon. We had peace deals being signed in the Middle East. We were respected on the world stage. Our allies were paying our fair share. Under Joe Biden, worst border crisis in U.S. history, an economy that makes Jimmy Carter's look like a lightweight, a war in the Middle East and Europe with no end in sight. Everything is on fire, and President Trump is going to be he's going to be the one that provides the solutions to all of the problems that Joe Biden has caused.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about something else, the logistics for tonight. President Trump has indicated that his running mate pick is going to be in attendance this evening, which of course leaves the rest of us wondering who's going to be in attendance. Can you give us a sense of the guest list this evening? Who will be there in the vicinity of the studio?
Well, since we're just among friends, President Trump's fortunate to have many great American patriots with him tonight. I will pull the old trick and say you're going to have to tune in and watch. But I will say this: there's much speculation around who President Trump is going to select as his vice president. Look, the only person who knows who Donald Trump is going to select for vice president is Donald J. Trump himself. But I will tell you, whoever he selects, Kamala Harris is going to have her hands full on her own debate stage later this summer, and I don't think she's going to be able to cackle her way out of that one.
Sure. Yeah, and they haven't actually agreed to that debate, have they? I know that your campaign, President Trump, has suggested doing it at a historically black college in Virginia, but we haven't actually had any confirmation of that, have we?
I guess we're going to find out if they've had enough tonight. We're going to find out if they can take the heat tonight.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
one debate might be enough for these lightweights.
That'll be fascinating. All right. So we don't know who's in attendance, and then finally, just you don't have to tell me who's there because you won't. But will the people who are with President Trump be in a green room or somewhere nearby? I'm trying to figure out the logistics here because he's bringing people with him, but we're being told over and over that only the moderators, the candidates, and then I would presume some of the production staff and maybe even Secret Service will be in the studio. Where will everyone else be who's in attendance there?
Yeah, President Trump has an excellent team behind him. Some of our team will be with him in Atlanta. They will be tuning in just like the American people. And, beyond that, I don't have much to share just for the sake of our team and their protocols and Secret Service and whatnot. But President Trump has an excellent team of highly intelligent, great American patriots who love this country with him there tonight. And our team is, it's an honor. It's our team's honor, actually, to be a part of supporting President Trump with this debate, because we know that President Trump represents the will of the American people, and it is our honor to do our part to bring that to the debate stage tonight on their behalf.
All right, Caroline Sunshine, Trump Campaign Deputy Communications Director. Nice to talk to you today, Caroline. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good to have you here. All right, so big debate tonight. I was hoping to find out a little bit more about who might be in attendance. Corey, we have had some names, right? There are some names that are being floated around out there that are supposed to be in attendance with him this evening. Come and tell me. Come, just, Corey's here. Corey's been keeping track of this. You can tell me over whatever microphone you want. Tim Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy are supposed to be with him this evening. Simultaneously, Kelly Loeffler is hosting a party in Atlanta. It's a watch party where most of the people who've been around Trump over time are expected to be. There's been a lot of parsing of that guest list. Well, if they're there, they're not with Trump, so therefore they're not the pick. I don't think it's as easy as that. I think Trump could literally grab any of those guys from the Loeffler party and yank them over and say, hey, you're coming with me to this debate tonight. So I guess we'll see. We're all waiting with bated breath. We'll all be in suspense until we see who's actually there with him. And my guess is we actually will know the details of that prior to the debate, because some reporter is going to get a hold of it and start sharing it in public. So we'll keep tracking that. Let's see. Phil's calling in from Fredericksburg, line 7. Phil, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Look, we all know that tonight it's going to be three very partisan Democrats protecting a very sick Democrat president. But what I would like to see from President Trump is a real positive message about what he's going to do for the American people. And every time that these three people try to drive him back to 2020 and January 6th, he says, I'm worried about right now for the American people. I'm worried about 2025 for the American people. I'm here to work for the American people. I want to hear a positive message. I know he can do it. And if he flashes that smile at the end of this debate, I'm telling you, man, he's won this thing. He's won it. Come on, President Trump. We need you, brother.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Phil wanting a very positive President Trump today. I don't think Phil's rolling out all jabs. I think he'll be happy with a couple, but he wants a very positive President Trump today. We'll see. We'll see what happens this evening. That's coming up. You can hear it live right here on WMAL starting at 9 o'clock. Let's see. Line 8 is where we find Robin in Maryland. Robin, you are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
The debate tonight, it's not going to be fair. We all know that. And I don't think everybody keeps talking this week about, will they leak the questions? I don't think they had to leak the questions. I'm betting more that they already know the questions, or they told them what the questions would be, because they cannot allow Frazzle Drip Joe to not know an answer in advance. And I'm very suspicious he'll have an earbud.
Well, we'll keep our eyes open. But Trump is standing on the side one would assume Biden has the earpiece in, right? Because Biden's right shoulder will be to Trump, and his ear will be concealed from us as a result, because he's kind of facing in that direction. So right. if anyone is going to be an eyewitness to that, it'll be President Trump. So one more thing for him to do tonight is to check to see if there's an earpiece. Robin, thank you. And on this question of what's happening here, I'm sorry. Is Robin still there?
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, Robin. You had something else you wanted to say?
Oh, no, I was just, I slightly lost my train of thought there, doing a Biden. I was thinking also that if they try to bring up anything that would violate the now partial gag order,
yes.
President Trump should just say, as a political prisoner, I cannot answer that. So let's talk about other things. Joe's comfortable in the past with his condition. I'm talking about the future now.
Yeah, amen. All right, good ideas. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, that's a fascinating feature here is Judge Juan Merchan, a fascinating corrupt feature of all of this. Judge Juan Merchan earlier this week coming out and saying that, oh, yeah, Trump can talk about Stormy Daniels now, but he's still not allowed to talk about the Biden administration's connection to his prosecution. Can't bring that up. Kind of seems like one of the most important things to bring up in a presidential debate against the guy who's trying to throw you in prison. You can't mention the Banana Republic this evening. Coming up, more of your debate predictions, what you're looking for, what you'd like Trump to know. Also, Dan Schneider will be here from Free Speech America and the Media Research Center. We talked to him about more interference in our election, this time by big tech, yet again.